Thank y'all so much. Is this working all right? Thank y'all so much. Super excited to be here. And I'm glad we got to go on that hike last weekend, Preston. That was fun. It's hard to get exercise sometimes when you're running all over western North Carolina, going to, I think, 8 different county conventions in the last week. And this is my 3rd speech today. I spent the morning, I got to go to the Buncombe County men's breakfast and spoke to that crowd. And then we drove out to Brevard, and we went over there and spoke in Brevard at the Transylvania County group. And now I'm so lucky to be here in Henderson County. Good morning, Henderson County. We got a big job ahead of us. I'm going to need some help. We got a big job ahead of us. And guess what? I got into this race because I felt like I know a lot of people in the business community. I know a lot of people in the agriculture community. And I can feel like I can go earn the trust of a lot of folks that don't typically vote for Democrats. And so I've been working hard doing all that. And I feel more confident than ever that we're going to beat Chuck Edwards in November. And I spent the last 5 days. On Tuesday night, I went over to Justice Orchards over in Edneyville and went to the Apple School Social. Hung out with a bunch of folks over there, all my old friends. And then on Wednesday, I went to the Apple School, which was right here at Blue Ridge Community College. And this place is sometimes hard to find the right place to be, so I walked all around Blue Ridge Community College and did that and hung out with a lot of folks there, friends there. And then Thursday, I met with your sheriff over here, Lowell. We had a great conversation, met for an hour and a half, had a great discussion about all the issues they're having around here in Henderson County. And then yesterday morning, I was in Henderson County again, but I'm trying to remember why. But I was at the legislative breakfast, the Farm Bureau legislative breakfast. So I got to visit with folks over there and do all that. So this is my 5th day in a row here in Henderson County. And Henderson County might be ground zero of this campaign because Henderson County is moving fast towards Democrats. And I just got back from Brevard in Transylvania County, and I think there's 2 counties that we're going to win in this election. It's these 2 counties. And you guys are going to make it happen because you're the workhorses that are going to make this thing happen. And to me, that's the job ahead of us. So thank y'all for having me. Super excited. I'll introduce myself. I'm Jamie Ager. I'm a 4th generation Western North Carolinian, family farmer from over in Fairview. Part of our farm does come over into Henderson County too. We're right on the line. That's where Preston and I were hanging out, right on the Henderson County, Buncombe County line. And it is a steep hike. It's a beast. My other friend said, "Are you trying to kill me?" But Preston had no problem. He's fit as a fiddle. We roared right up there. So I'm Jamie Ager. I'm 4th generation here. For the past 25 years, my wife, Amy, I'll say this, my great-grandparents moved here back in 1916. And my great-grandfather was a Presbyterian minister. And they would travel. They basically started a farmers cooperative called the Farmers Federation. And they would travel all over western North Carolina. And they would have picnics all over western North Carolina. And they would talk about how to bring more economic opportunity for rural folks all over this area. How to really they built feeding seeds and stuff like that all over the region. And so that old Presbyterian heritage is baked deep into me. And so with that comes a lot of guilt and shame and all that kind of stuff. But it also comes with an idea that to serve others is the highest form of humanity. And I feel lucky to have that baked into my DNA. And it's why I'm running for Congress right now. Because we live in the greatest country in the history of humanity with the greatest system where we have democratic rule and people have a voice. And to me, that is something that's so special. And to me, that's special. That thing has to do what the people need it to do. And so the farm out in Fairview, we had a dairy farm when I was a little kid. And then we sold that when I was about 12 years old. And so my high school years, the farm was mostly used as a tactic to keep me and my brothers out of trouble. And it sort of worked. I don't know if it totally worked, but it mostly worked. But it did teach us the value of hard work, which I think farming, there's always a never-endless things to do. And I'm going to go back to the farm this afternoon. I'm going to do some farm stuff this afternoon, so I'm excited about that. But when I graduated from college at Warren Wilson, just up the road, and I was young and I had my girlfriend at the time, and we were young and idealistic about coming back to the farm and making it work and making a sustainable meat company. And the good news is, 25 years later, we're still fired up and idealistic about making family farms work, about being good to people, about really making sure that and over those 25 years, we built a business with deep values around agriculture and food that's good for the land, that's good for animals, and ultimately good for the people that we do business with, the employees of the business, the farmers that we work with, and also our customers. And so to me, those values around how do we build businesses that are good community members are some of the same values that made me decide to run for Congress. So here I am. Let's go. This election, we're going to focus on three main issues for this election. Number one is Hurricane Helene recovery. Number two is the fact that so many families all over Western North Carolina are working hard and they can't get ahead economically. The cost of living is so high for so many folks. And what that leads to is cynicism and discouragement. And to me, that's the third issue, is our government isn't doing the work of the people. And the government has to re-earn the trust of the people because it's lost the trust of the people. And when you lose the trust of the people, you got to work hard to earn it back. Because I feel like trust is like a jar, right? And you can only put a penny a day because that's human nature. People aren't going to trust you more than just a little bit every day. And you can break it all at once. And so right now we've got a lot of work to do to get back to the work of building a great country and having good people involved who care and are willing to work hard to do it. So the first issue is Hurricane Helene recovery. September 27th, 2024, 18 months ago now, we all took a big hit here in Western North Carolina. And we lost a lot of infrastructure, roads, bridges, culverts on the farm, fence lines on the farm, communities. We woke up that day that were just devastated. And not only did we lose a ton of infrastructure and all the things like that, but we lost friends and neighbors. In Fairview, we lost 13 folks from a family in Craigtown. You could see the devastation, what happened over in Chimney Rock and Lake Lure and Bat Cave. You can see the devastation in Swannanoa. You can see the Swannanoa in Fletcher. The damage was so extensive. And people were all traumatized. I was actually over in Swannanoa last week at an organization called Hearts with Hands, which does a lot of disaster response stuff. And after the storm, we had no power at the farm for 3 weeks. And we have a walk-in freezer there that was slowly thawing meat. And so every day, Amy would pull up there first thing. Because Amy works at Warren Wilson, my wife. And I meant to say that. The biggest, hardest part about building a business is making sure you stay married after 25 years. And we did. We're still married, so it's good news. That was the biggest challenge of it. But she would drive over there and drop off thawing meat into to feed all the first responders there at Hearts with Hands. And I'd never actually been to Hearts with Hands myself because I was just loading the car and she was off. And she was like, I made friends with all these people. You need to get to know these people. I'm like, well, let's go. And so I met with Greg, and we talked for 3 hours because, I feel like once you start going through the experience that we all had after Hurricane Helene, you can just keep going. I mean, it's just like we're still processing that whole thing, right? And so, and this was what everybody was doing after the storm, just doing whatever you could to help, right? And so, to me, that storm damage was around $60 billion, roughly. It was an expensive storm. And we had politicians, Chuck Edwards, Donald Trump, show up in Swannanoa and promise that they were going to get the money for that storm. And here we are 18 months later with less than 15% of those funds coming into these communities. And there is one person, if you have all the levers of power in Washington and you represent Western North Carolina and you can't get the money flowing here in Western North Carolina, that's a failure of leadership. And we're going to hold Chuck Edwards responsible for that every single day for the next 7 months. And I'm going to need your help. So you guys can help me with that. And the other thing that he didn't do is when communities are devastated, when they've been through so much loss and grief, they lost their houses, they lost their neighbors, part of what leadership is showing up in the community, being available for people. And guess what? People might be mad. They might be a little pissed off because they've been through a lot. And you know what you do when people are pissed off? You don't go hide behind social media posts and tele-town halls. You lean in and you have a conversation and you give somebody a hug that's lost their family member. You show up at a place like Hearts with Hands. I asked Greg, I said, Greg, has Chuck ever been to here to see what you guys do or anything like that? He's like, no, he's never been here before. And that's a failure of leadership. You got to show up for your community, for your people, because when communities are devastated, you obviously need to get the money so that communities can get rebuilt. But you got to show up in the community and be a human who's available for people. And that's what I'm going to do when I'm in the U.S. Congress next year. So the second thing we're going to focus on as part of this campaign is the fact that for so many families that are working hard, that are working a 40-hour week, that are doing everything they can to raise their kids and pay for daycare and pay for health care, which has gone up tremendously in the last several years, and the system is broken. And they can't afford a home, they can't afford their rent, and they can't afford the utilities, because utilities have gone up 40-some% in the last year. I was talking to a sheriff here in Henderson County, and he said that a lot of their deputies are coming in from out of the community because they can't afford to live in this community on the salary that they make. And to me, that tells you something, doesn't it? And so to me, we have to have a scenario where folks that live in the communities that they work in have to be able to afford to live in those communities. We have to fix our healthcare system so that it's not the #1 cause of bankruptcy in this country. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. And we have to have health care that people know if they get sick, that they have a doctor that they know and trust they can go meet with and not avoid going to get health care because they're scared of how much it's going to cost them, and then whether when they get a prescription, is it going to cost $5 or is it going to cost $500? And those are terrifying things. And the fact that we have so many people that don't have coverage or lack coverage, this anxiety that people have and the inability to know if they have a safe, secure thing is real, right? And we got a mental health epidemic in this country. No freaking wonder why. Because it's stressful if you can't live your life and do that stuff. And so to me, we have work to do to make our community strong and do all those things. And when you're unable to feel like you can get ahead, when you're unable to feel like you're working hard, you're playing by the rules and doing the things, and you still can't pay off your credit card debt, you still can't pay off your college, loans, all those things, you start to feel discouraged and you start to feel like the system doesn't work for you. And then you look at Washington, and you see congressmen and women trading stocks and turning into billionaires. We got to ban stock trading for members of Congress. That's unacceptable. And this is bipartisan. This is easy, low-hanging fruit. We just got to go do it. We've also got folks that think, and it's largely true, that corporations and billionaires can tell politicians how to vote, and the politicians are going to react to that. So we've got to get rid of Citizens United. We've got to have campaign finance reform so that everyday people feel like their voice is what matters every day. And everybody I talked to, Adam Smith, who ran against Chuck, we talked about this issue. He's like, dang right we do. This is not bipartisan. This is bipartisan stuff. This is stuff we can sit down and solve. I tell my friends who are Republicans, like, you guys have an ideology for me, but if you care about your country and you want our country to do well, let's sit down and talk about and hash out a game plan to where we can solve this problem. But immigration's a good issue, a good example of this, where for the past 40 years we haven't had any meaningful immigration reform in this country. And instead of having earnest folks try to solve this problem, right now we're using it as political football to gain votes and gain power and not solve problems for the American people. And to me, leadership is solving problems for everyday working people. That's the job of a leader. That's how our country was meant to run, not to go score political points on different political issues. And so to me, when people see all this political baloney that goes on in Washington, D.C., they feel discouraged. They get frustrated, and they should. And so to me, part of the leader I want to be is somebody that shows up. I'm earnest about helping people. I care about our communities, and I want everybody to win. And if that's not your stance, then you're unpatriotic. and you need to leave because it's not cool. We've got work to do here. I'm a patriot. I care about our country. Our democracy is the best system in the history of humanity, and that system has to work for people. And that's the job we have. And so to me, that's the work we got, and that's the communication we're going to have. And the last thing I'll say is that, I'm a child of these mountains. I grew up here. I've lived here all my life. I love the mountains. I love the rivers, the creeks, the small towns, the small businesses that knit these communities together. And when people ask me, what can I do to help with our communities? What can I do to participate? I say, get involved in your local community. Do things. Be friends with people that you disagree with and learn how to solve problems together. Coach a basketball team. Volunteer somewhere. Get to know people. Because in the modern day, with the social media environment we're in, people are becoming more and more disconnected. And we need people to become more and more connected and understanding each other's common humanity so that we can actually go solve problems together once you've got a relationship built. And to me, if we have small towns that are strong and relationships that are built in these small towns, and these small towns become strong communities, and then we stitch a bunch of small communities together, and that's what makes a wonderful region, and that's what makes a wonderful state, and that's what makes a wonderful country. And to me, this campaign that we're running right now is all about the one word in the job description, the key word in the job description, which is representative. And when I'm in Congress, I'm going to represent all the people of Western North Carolina. And Western North Carolina is the most special, beautiful, wonderful place in the world. And to me, when we get up there, we're going to represent the interests of Western North Carolina primarily and make sure that those interests are met. And so I really can't wait until next November, with your help, that we flip Henderson County and beat Chuck Edwards right in his hometown county. And I was talking to some people this past week, and they're like, you're showing up in Henderson County a lot. And I'm like, we're coming right for him, right here in his home. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of support. When I go out and talk to folks, there's a lot of folks in the rural communities that are coming up to me and being like, we're supporting your campaign. We think you're the right person for Western North Carolina. And I think they're right. So let's go do it. Need your help, y'all. Need lots of help here. We got a lot of work to do, and you guys are going to help make it happen. So thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. I'm having lots of fun. I got lots of energy, and we're going to go win. So let's go do it.